What's up, Instagram? What's up, Facebook? What's up, YouTube? Happy Friday. Patrick, Art Storefronts here, back with another Friday rant for you on just some things that I'm seeing out there um, in the digital world, let's just say. Um, as it is trying to market and grow an art and or photography business. Not easy, not easy. But there's been some very interesting trends already in 2026. And I suppose the good news in that is like there's nothing new under the sun, right? There's nothing new in the sun. I think as we closed out in 2025, like one of the things that I was continually ranting about is how important story is in your art, how important it is for what's up, Loose Cannon, how important it is for artists and for photographers. The artist can no longer hide behind the canvas, the photographer can no longer hide behind the lens. Banged on about that all year last year. And I think broadly, what's changed in 2026 is number one, I believe 2026 is going to be the most remarkable year that any of us have lived through in our entire lives. The technology that is coming out, what AI is capable of and what it can do is just, it is mind-boggling on levels I don't think any human can even wrap their head around the pace at which it's changing. Okay, and you can either be the glass half full guy. I'm a glass half full guy, or you can be, Skynet has been activated, Terminator is coming to get us, the Matrix, whatever your doom scenario is. But in the meantime, we have creative businesses and we need to get them growing, right? We need to get them moving in the right direction. And as we closed out 2025, we started talking about how important story is, right? I've long said on my podcast, in blog posts that I've written in any live session that I've done, that I think one of the most common misconceptions about how art and photography, how creations are sold, is that those creations are sold on a pure meritocracy of the quality of the creation. Okay. What do I mean by that? I mean, what differentiates one piece of photography from another selling, the one that does versus the one that doesn't? What differentiates a piece of art from selling, the piece of art that sells versus the piece of art that doesn't, has very little to do with the actual caliber of the work itself. And that's a crazy thing to say. That doesn't make sense to most of us, right? You're like, wait a minute. Why did I practice art? Why did I practice photography? Why did I practice making my creations the last 25 years to get as good as I am? I'm very good at this. I've got 10,000 hours a la Malcolm Gladwell in this. Are you saying that doesn't matter, Patrick? No, I'm not saying it doesn't matter. It's very, very important. It's very, very important for repeat business. It's very, very important for a lot of it. But it's not as important as the story, right? And, I was playing this Van Gogh video a bunch on here recently. And, I think it's very, very relevant because everyone knows Van Gogh. Most people have some semblance of his story. But the long and the short of his story is a deeply troubled man, yes. A talented artist, yes. A prolific artist, yes. Created a tremendous amount of work. When he finished his work, he would write a story about the work. He would send the work to Paris. He lived out in the countryside in France. His brother lived in Paris. He would send it to his brother in Paris. His brother had all of these pieces of work piled up in Paris, attempting to sell them. His brother died, left a widow with a young child. The widow attempted to sell Van Gogh's work, had multiple gallery shows way back then in that era, whatever a gallery show looked like, probably not different than today. None of the work sold. Sunflowers didn't sell. Starry Night didn't sell. That painting of the bed didn't sell. None of Van Gogh's work sold. And when you look at that, you're like, wait a minute. Back then, after Van Gogh died, what do artists and photographers love to say? Oh, I'll be famous upon death because, there's so many stories of artists becoming famous after they've died. Why didn't Van Gogh's work sell back then? He had died. He was dead. His brother's widow had his entire body of work and had a gallery show, and no one bought anything. They saw those paintings and no one bought anything. So what changed in the Van Gogh story to go from work that wouldn't sell in a gallery to arguably one of the top 3 most valuable art collections on the planet? His brother's widow, who had the collection, published a book of his letters, all his stories, how he thought, what made him tick, who he was, his vulnerabilities, his frailties, the fact that he was such a broken human. That book got published, and everyone that looked at that work before and didn't buy it immediately bought it. And in the story, it doesn't need to be any more profound than that. It's that. Van Gogh's got the best work ever, right? It must have just sold because it was so good. No, it wasn't a meritocracy on the quality of his work. No one cared. It was getting to know him, getting to appreciate his story, seeing the paintings with the story that fundamentally changed everything. It fundamentally changed everything for Van Gogh. And my position is, I believe it will fundamentally change everything for artists and photographers 10 years ago, 50 years ago, 100 years ago, today, in the next 10 years. You guys have got to start telling your stories. Fast forward to today, though, in 2026, and we as content creators, okay, are faced with one of the most extraordinary, most groundbreaking, most unexpected, unexplainable, difficult to wrap your head around, difficult to process, difficult to grok situations ever. In that situation, succinctly, is the fact that this technology, by which I mean AI and its various different facets, doesn't matter if you're talking about how it writes, how it codes, how it solves problems, how it researches, how it does science, how it does photos, how it does video, how it creates art, right? We are now in a period of time, in 2026 especially, okay? And yesterday, 2 brand new models just dropped, a new one from GPT and a new one from Anthropic, both on the same day, okay? And what we face as creators today in 2026, trying to grow our brands, trying to sell our products, trying to get people to follow us, get on our email list, participate in our sales campaigns, and purchase our work so that we can feed our families as creators, is we're facing one of the greatest existential crises of all time, period, end of sentence. And what's really interesting about that crisis is nothing, by the way, nothing on one of these that you see on a screen is real anymore. Nothing is. None of it. Every single solitary bit of it can be fake. Everything, the image, the video, the person talking about it, the person pointing at the work, the house that they live in, the cars, the trips that they're on or not on, the text, the type, all of it. We are moving to a time where 100% of anything that you consume on a screen, you don't know if it's going to be real. I don't know if it's going to be real or if it's fake. That is a gnarly and existential crisis. That is something none of us have ever had to contemplate before, in the slightest, okay? In the slightest. And so I think you have to take stock of that. You have to come to terms with that, and you have to say, okay, I can't prevent that. I can't stop that. I can't change that. What do I do? What do I do in that modality, right? What do I do in that modality? And it's interesting. So there's this guy, Brian Chesky, and he is the founder of Airbnb, okay? Now, obviously, if you own Airbnb, you're a bit conflicted in giving this type of a speech, right? Because what does Airbnb sell? They inherently sell things that are non-AI. They're real things in the physical world. But I think he gave this speech like a couple of weeks ago, or maybe it was even a month ago now. I don't know. But I just want to play it. I'm gonna share the screen, and I gotta get the sidebar out of the way. Let me share my screen, and I want all of us just to watch this quickly. Let me make sure I can try to make it as big as possible. All right, that's the best I can do.
Term is artificial. We are now living in a world, as of last week, with the video content, where you cannot know for certain. I mean, there could be digital like fingerprints that this is real, but we're going to live in a world where it's not clear that what you're seeing is real. In other words, now anything
you can't tell.
You won't be able to tell. And I think that's maybe the point of it, that in the future, if it's on a screen, it will be artificial, or it could be artificial. And so you want to ride a trend, or you ride the opposite of a trend. And the opposite of artificial is real. The opposite is
you want to ride a trend, i.e., you want to do what everyone else is doing, or you want to do the opposite of the trend. I think that's really powerful.
Screen is the real world. And so I think that the real world will not change that much in the next 3 years. I think we're going to basically create this digital world staring at a screen that's highly artificial. It's going to get more and more immersive. And there's going to be a physical world. You're going to have robotics. But other than robotics, people are going to still drink wine the same way. All that stuff's going to be very, very similar. Now, a lot of robotics can replace a lot of jobs. People aren't going to be driving cars in the future.
I don't even actually need to watch any more of it. But I think his point there is really, really powerful, right? Where as a result of all of this technology, okay, and I promise there's a point to this whole rant. As a result of all this technology, as a result that AI can generate anything, it can generate the art, it can generate me as a talking head, so I don't have to do my job anymore. It can generate my podcasts. Fine. I'm a creator and a content marketer for a company. You guys are creating products you're trying to sell. We're not so different. We're in the same boat, right? And so if everything on the screen is no longer real, right? It all can be manufactured. What are we as human beings going to end up doing? What are we going to end up craving? And his point, and obviously it's self-serving, because what does he sell? He sells the things that's real. You booking an Airbnb and going on a vacation or something, right? But for us as creators, the buttoned up, polished campaign, fancy edited videos, coiffed hair, perfectly tailored suit, great design stuff, anything that looks super, super polished is not real. It's just not. And this trend has been swinging this way for a while, even pre AI, right? Like there's a reason, you look back at this last presidential elections cycle, right? This last one with Trump, and it didn't matter whether we were talking about the political aspect of the game or whether we were talking about what's been going on with like all these CEOs, various different companies. Before, what would Trump he was running against Harris. What was Trump or Harris? What would they have done? They would have gone on ABC News or NBC News or a debate, right? What wouldn't they have done? They would not have gone on Joe Rogan or why am I blanking on all the podcast names? You guys know all the rest of the hosts, all the downstream podcast hosts. They went Theo Vaughn or why am I blanking on all the names? I don't know. It's Friday. It's been a long week. That's happening. And now what are all the CEOs of companies doing? Okay. They're not putting out a polished press release anymore. They're not having a short news conference in front of the building. They're going on these podcasts where they can be on for an hour, where you can't selectively edit things, where it's not faked, where there are no cuts, maybe one short little ad read, but the whole situation is just very, very real. Okay. You can paper over a lot of things in these little short, snappy media bits, quick cuts, edits, clean editing, beautiful retouching, and all of that. And people are over that. They're over that. We've been fed that for a long time as media consumers, and no one trusts it anymore. And that was the trend even before AI. Now, with AI coming in, the only thing that we humans want to see, the only thing that we humans are going to know, like, and trust are the things that are real. Okay? Are the things that are real. And we talk about artists, photographers trying to sell their creations. Okay. And I was running the webinar at the beginning of the week this week. And, somebody asked me like, well, I've just retired and, I'm going to get into my art business and I've never been active on social media. And, all of my friends tell me that like, it's just a huge waste of time, that you post things on social media. They don't get any likes or comments and shares. No one sees anything. No one buys anything. And why would I do that? Like, what am I going to do? Right. And I've heard that refrain for so long, for such a long period of time. And it actually infuriates me because you don't need to be social media sophisticated. Okay. You don't have to be a practitioner. You don't have to share what you had for lunch. Okay. And you don't have to be a Kardashian and have the cameras follow you around 24 hours a day either. But you have to be real. You have to be real, right? And what do most creators do? Artists and photographers especially. Artists love hiding behind the canvas. The photographers love hiding behind the lens. We know everything about what it is that you do. You create art, you create photography, you create creations, and we know very little about who you are. What's your story? Is there anything real about you? right? And the analogy that I always give, because it's so important, is like, if you and I met for the first time at a coffee shop, and this is to me right now, especially in 2026, this is the one sentence, this is the one way that you need to think about your social media output. And really, I'm going on a tangent here, but this pisses me off. It has nothing to do with social media. You guys, I hate social media. I could care less about social media. Do you know what it has to do with? This. It just has to do with this. Okay. Go outside, those of you that live in a warm part of this world, okay, or go indoors somewhere if you live somewhere cold today, and for a minute, keep this in your pocket, okay, and go to somewhere where there's going to be some people and have a look around. How many people are actually in the real world doing a real anything versus how many people have their face glued to this thing looking at it, right? It's staggering. I walked my dog a few minutes ago. Every single solitary other person, exercising or otherwise, had their face stuck in it. The workers, some guy that was installing DirecTV had his face stuck in his phone. He wasn't doing his job. It's like that is what social media is. It's just figuring out how to get your creations in the place where everyone spends the most time, right? So it's not even about social media. But I digress. The one sentence, okay? The one frame, the one layer of focus that you need to think about. You and I meet at a bar. I like beers. So you and I meet at bars for a beer, okay? Or you like coffee. You and I meet at a coffee shop to have a coffee, okay? We sit down. We strike up the conversation. It's you and I talking, right? You and I talking, right, to one another. And I introduce myself, and you say, "Oh, hey, how you doing? My name's Arun." "Hey, Arun, Patrick, nice to meet you." "Yeah, great to meet you." So what do you do for work, Arun?" And Arun goes, "Yeah, I'm an artist." And I'm like, "That's awesome, Arun. Yeah, I actually, it's funny you say that. I run the marketing department at a company that helps artists. That's really ironic. Where are you from, Arun?" And then Arun goes, "I am an artist." And I'm like, that's great, Arun. Where do you live these days where you do all this art?" And Arun goes, "Buy my art. It's amazing." And I'm like, casually drink my drink, and I'm like, that's weird. "That's really cool, Arun. So what are you doing here?" "Well, I'm here to let people know that I'm an artist, that I have art for sale, and that what I primarily do is art. And just so you know, next Friday, I'm going to be selling some of my art at a little bit of a discount. So why don't you come back and buy some?" That would be a really weird conversation. That would be an extremely strange conversation, okay? I would be like, I'm trying to have a conversation with Arun here, who I just met at this bar, or this coffee shop. I'm trying to get to know this guy. And all he says is art, 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 or a variation of art, okay? You would never do that in the real world. So why are you doing that on social media? Ask yourself honestly, why are you doing that on social media? How one-dimensional of a human being would you be if every single solitary interaction you had with whoever, which is what social media is, all you talked about was one thing all day long? You'd be pretty one-dimensional. It would be pretty boring. I would never get an idea of the entire package, right? And yet if I go to a great many social media accounts, especially the people that tell me, "Patrick, it doesn't work. There's nobody on here. The algorithm is trained against me. It was great 10 years ago, but everything's broken now." That, like, I hear that and I'm like, stop it. Stop being so damn one-dimensional. Okay? Understand that is not how this works. It's never how it's worked. Okay? It should be the inverse. When I sat down with Arun in that coffee shop, it should be 90% what he does, and then I should be banging on the door to get that last 10% out of him. Right? That seems like a more interesting way. And my position is that art sales at a macro, no different than the Van Gogh analogy. Maybe they're 50-50. Maybe they're 60-40. Maybe they're 70-30, or maybe they're 80-20. Either way, they're not 100% art is what sells art. Nobody wants that all day long. Okay. Nobody wants that. You don't want that. You don't want anyone else to do that to you. Art sales are either 50-50, 50% the personality of the artist, 50% of meritocracy on the work, or they're 60-40, 70-30, or 80-20 the personality of the artist. And if you are not putting, okay, hello to Ireland. My name's Patrick Shanahan, by the way, clearly not Italian, so love Ireland. Anyway, if you are not putting, and again, I don't care about social media, I mean on this, where you get the eyeballs on this. If you are not having a conversation on this, where you are not one-dimensional, you cannot just post about your work, and you cannot just post about your process, and you cannot just post about you unveiling your work, and you cannot just post about your work being unveiled on a wall. All of those are great post types, okay? All of those are very helpful, right? But they're not enough. They're not enough for you guys to get the type of engagement that you are looking to get. They are not enough for you to get the likes and comments and shares that you need, okay? They are just not. They're not. We need to know who you are. We need to know what makes you tick. We need to know what makes you interesting. We need to know if you're a dog or a cat person. If you have pain in your life, you've got to share a little bit of that. If you're weird, be weird. Be you. Everyone else is already taken, right? And it seems so simple when you hear it all. And it seems so simple to say, and yet almost no one does it, right? Because we think based on this BS social media world that we all see, that everyone else is perfect and everyone else is perfectly stitched up and everyone else is in great shape and they don't have any flaws and they don't have a weird family and they don't have skeletons in the closet and they don't have baggage, right? Biggest bunch of BS ever. Every single solitary one of us is a broken human being. Every single solitary one of us has scars. Every single solitary one of us has skeletons in the closet. And to tie it back together to that earlier Irish comment, is George Bernard Shaw Irish? I gotta ask Google. It's Irish or English. Anyway, George Bernard Shaw, playwright, said, everybody's got skeletons in the closet. The key is to make them dance. The key is to make them dance, right? When you guys start telling more of your story, okay, when you start explaining why you create the things that you create, the pain, okay, the suffering, the ups and downs, the unfair world, the getting kicked in the teeth, the drug and alcohol issues, the whatever it is, the trials, the tribulations of your life, you have no idea the admiration you're going to get, the connection you're going to get, that people are going to be like, oh my gosh, it's like that for me too. It's like that for me too. The bond that creates is so much more powerful, okay? So much more powerful than just your work alone. In the mathematics of it, I mean, I don't want to go from story to mathematics though. Yeah, and so Diego here in Instagram, you guys all can't see this comment, but I can. I think that my story is not worth telling, right? That is the lie that we all tell ourselves. Everyone has a story that is not worth telling. And Diego, I just released a podcast episode where I pulled up a bunch of the stories of famous artists that went absolutely Richter in their careers, that were in the most boring towns in the world, that had nothing going on, that lived with their family, that never got married, and that barely even left the little apartment. Okay. And a ton of them are now famous because the reality is that all of our stories are interesting. Every single solitary human being. And it's not to say some stories are not more interesting than the others. Of course they are, right? But we all have the story to tell. And there's a tribe online, okay, that is interested in the one that we are telling because they've lived a very similar life. In addition to that, the mass of this whole thing, you guys, the mass of this whole thing are really, really easy. You want to win on this thing, right? It's really easy to win on this thing. There's maths, okay? And the way that I like to think of it is like, if you just think of the phone on Instagram as the biggest freeway in the entire world, there's not like 4 or 5 lanes, right? There's 5 million lanes on this freeway, okay? And what happens is that when you create content on Instagram, on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on Pinterest, on Next, on whatever, TikTok, Blue Sky, Threads, to leave anything out, The algorithm is what puts you on the freeway. Okay. And the algorithm looks at your work and it looks at what you've posted and it goes, okay, I know what this is. This is a painting, okay, of sunflowers. I'm going to pick this and I'm going to put it in the freeway lane of people that like paintings of sunflowers. Off it goes. And depending on how many people that are online in that moment that love paintings of sunflowers, and depending on how many likes and comments it gets, it might go really far down that freeway lane, or it might only just go a little bit and stop, right? Your guys' problem, okay, when I say your guys, artists and photographers' problem is 90 to 95% of the content that you're creating is all going in the same lane, which is to the same people that have the same interests. Instead, when you start posting these different things, your story, who you are, what makes you tick, what your hobbies are, what you did to get the shot, what makes you interesting, the fact that your story is not interesting, the pain that you have in your life, your dog, what you did last week, and all these things that make you you, that just takes you and puts you in different lanes on the freeway. Okay. It's like you're at the roulette table and you've got a bunch of different money on a bunch of different places in the board. I've never played roulette in my entire life, by the way. I don't understand that game. But each piece of content, based on what the algorithm determines what is in it, is going to determine where you are on that giant freeway. And you want to be you don't put all your eggs in one basket. You want to be in a bunch of different lanes at a bunch of different times. As if that wasn't important enough. Okay. With AI, everything has just gotten harder because now everything can be fake. So all of us as human beings throughout this year of 2026 are going to be utterly, totally, and completely bombarded with this and more of it. And it's going to get better and better. And a lot of you guys have seen it already. You're like, oh my God, that image, that video, I can't even tell if that's the real human. Was that a real news story? Did President Trump just say that? Did someone really just say that? Was that a real fight? Did that animal attack that? We don't even know already. And all it's doing is like doubling in quality. What used to be every 6 months, like every 6 weeks, it's going to be every 6 days. So if you're not being the real you, if there's no filter, if like President Trump or the CEOs going on those long podcasts, if there's just a little short 2-minute clip of you instead of the long form, get to know this person, understand who they are, understand what makes them tick, you're going to have a very difficult time with it. It's going to be hard to get to know you. It's going to be hard to bond with you. No one's going to want to bond with you. They're going to be like, that's probably just fake and bad AI. They're not even good at AI. So you got to be you. Everyone else is taken. As cliche as that is to sound, it's so completely true, right? Your work on its own is not good enough. Okay? And don't take that personally. Van Gogh's work on his own was not good enough, right? It wasn't. The beautiful thing is once you get past everybody knows you and likes you and trusts you, you can put out any work you want. It's good enough because they're bonded to you just as much as the work, right? They're bonded to you just as much as the work. On the podcast, I should be able to pull it up. I can't even pull it up. Whatever. I got too many tabs open. It's called the Art Marketing Podcast. It's a podcast I host. I know a lot of you guys struggle, okay, with telling your stories, right? So we can leverage AI, right? And I think it's one of the most profound lines of AI too. And quick side tangent as I continue to promote the podcast shamelessly. We're not anti-AI. We're just pro-human, right? AI is all well and good. AI is great. If it makes artists and photographers more efficient, better at telling stories, better at getting the word out there, and helps them sell their art, fantastic. Whether or not we like art that was created by AI or not created by AI, I put that as a separate subject. I know that's a charged subject. I get that, but that's a separate topic. AI is very, very good at things that can help artists, okay? And I've been doing this for a long time. I've spoken to hundreds of thousands of you. Out of 100,000 artists, the number that have even one employee in their business is less than 0.1%. Those are the facts on the ground right now. You guys need help, and AI is amazing for that. So I'm actually very pro AI for artists and photographers and creators, especially the small guys, okay? We need it. We need it. So in the last podcast episode I put out, I created some prompts that you can use, okay, to interview yourself. They will poke you. They will prod you. They will get you talking, and they will help you save files that you can use to get better and better and better at telling your story, to get better and better and better as being a human being and not just someone that just creates and creates and creates. So Art Marketing Podcast, it's on Spotify, it's on YouTube, it's on Apple Podcasts, anywhere podcasts are found. Check that out and get ready, because I didn't even go through half my material because I just got ranting today, and I've got to end this thing. But you all have a huge opportunity to be you and tell your story this year. If you do that in your reel, the extra love that you're going to get on that content in contrast to AI, which everyone is going to revolt against, is going to be staggering. And you don't get to Carnegie Hall without practice, right? All of us have got to practice being real, okay? Being vulnerable, not being perfect, showing the scars and being okay with it. And the sooner you do that, the sooner your engagement takes off, the more emails you capture, the more people are going to be interested in your work, and on and on and on. So that is my Friday rant. I appreciate all of you. Thank you for staying tuned and listening. And I'll see you on a future video, a future live. Thanks, guys.